begin I3, Industry Investor Insights. I would like to call upon our moderator, Mr. Toine van Megen from Auroville Consulting, and our participants, Mr. Shrikumar Suryanarayan from C6 Energy, Colonel Monish Ahuja from TAI Chennai, and Mr. Narasimhan Santhanam from EAI.
I want to make first one confession. I don't know anything about the subject we're going to discuss, except one thing I know. Narsi, do you know that in the late 60s and early 70s, there was all this, flower power from San Francisco, the hippie movement. People from the West were coming to the East to learn yoga and meditation. And there was also a whole thing going on about food. And I was one of those fanatics who switched over to whole wheat. In fact, I baked my own sourdough bread. And then we were going for the, non-polished rice, raw vegetables, more salads. And one item on the dish was seaweed, because seaweed is supposed to have a lot of protein in it. Now, since we were so fanatic about it, we never told anyone how badly it tasted. Because, we were the advocates of the new age, right? So when anybody would ask, how is that seaweed? Oh, fantastic, you should also try it. And then they became also a member of our club. So that is how, in fact, in those days already, there was an opening to alternative foods. And that includes seaweeds. Now, what has happened is I had made notes of this meeting, and I think it is still laying there on my chair. Could you see on the next chair whether there is a notebook laying there? That's my notebook. Because all the notes for the meeting are on this. Thank you so much. So what I thought, Narsi, if you agree, that we could ask first our two key participants to tell a bit about their own companies, what they have done so far. Then I thought we can also ask them not what do you do, but how do you do it differently than others do it. And one question that we would like to hear from you also answered is, there are a lot of startups in this room. Do you see any opportunities for them? Or do you need other companies to start who could become part of your supply chain or part of your distribution network? And then I have another question, is about biocycle sustainability. But let us start first with, what do you do and how do you do it differently? Please, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Shrikumar, and I have co-founded a company. I'm the chairman of the company called C6 Energy. It's spelled SEA, numeral 6, Energy. So the company actually started in IIT Madras. It was in 2010, so it's nearly 15 years old. And it was a bold and audacious goal to really invent the next frontier of agriculture on the sea. So the idea, earlier on in the session, we heard about the biomass startup, and we're talking about how all this 200 million tons of biomass in India, and that will fulfill about 17% of India's energy needs. But the question is, what about the other 87% or 83%? Where will that biomass come from? Because we also have the largest population on the planet to feed. And the answer to that was that, hey, what if we invent a new kind of agriculture on the sea? Like seaweeds are plants that grow on the sea, but there is no technology for doing large-scale farming in the open oceans. So why don't we invent that? And that is precisely what we have done as a company over the last 15 years. Last year, we actually set up our first 1 square kilometer mechanized ocean farm. That's the world's first ocean farm in Indonesia. Now, people often ask us, how is this company, which is based in India, why did we have to go to Indonesia? And I'll come to that in a moment.
It is in Bali, right?
It's in Bali headquarters, but our farms are actually in Lombok in Indonesia.
In fact, if you ever have a vacancy there in Bali, let me know.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that, surprisingly. So, yeah, when I say that I go to Bali to work, very few people believe me. But to cut a long story short, That technology exists now, and we are actually farming that. We're now bringing it back to India, because to bring it back to India, we need to have a lot of regulation to be opened up. You know, there's nothing called marine geospatial planning. We don't. India is a very inward land-focused country. We don't understand. We haven't done much with our seas. Indonesia has, so it's just easier to work there. So what we have done is, as we did the farming, one of the biggest challenges we had was how to bring down the price of the seaweed, because we needed to bring it down tenfold to make it competitive. Somebody mentioned economics. And we are on that journey right now. We've already brought it down by about a factor of 5. And we think in the next 2 years, we can bring it down by another factor of 5, another factor of 3. So, but the question is, what do you do as a company? Because you can't forever survive on this long stuff. So in the interim, as we have brought down the price of the seaweed, we found that new economic frontiers have opened up. For example, one of the first products that we made from seaweed is a product that improves the efficiency of land-based agriculture. It improves the efficiency with which plants use fertilizer. And it increases yield by anywhere between 10 to 30% of our existing crops on the same land, which means it can improve our food security. As we bring down the price of the seaweed further, we have made biodegradable plastics. And as of earlier last month, we've demonstrated for the first time, in collaboration with a startup right out of IIT Madras called X2 Fuels. For the first time, we have demonstrated pilot scale production of crude oil from seaweed. So we have gotten our seaweed, biomass, and using some of their technology, we've actually made crude oil. This has become a super interesting opportunity for India. For the first time, we can now visualize that India can make its own oil by growing biomass on the sea. We need less than 7% of our sea area to completely make India independent of any imported crude oil. Just for the statistics, we are the 3rd largest consumer of crude oil in the world, and we import more than 80% of all the crude oil, which makes us dependent geopolitically on many actors. That is a summary of C6. That's the journey we are on.
Can you just explain to us what is so nice or unique about seaweed? What does seaweed have? I was told it has proteins a lot. Is that correct?
So there are different kinds of seaweed. And I think the fact that seaweed has high protein is mostly limited to seaweeds that are grown in cold waters in the northern regions. The tropical seaweeds are like very rich in carbohydrates. They are experts at harnessing the sunlight and the carbon dioxide and fixing it to carbohydrate. And in fact, 6-carbon sugars, which is the C6 sugars, as they say, which is the reason we have the name C6 Energy.
Okay. We come back to you with the follow-up questions a little later. Then we have another participant, Monish, who has been in CLIMAFIX quite a number of times already. Could you please also explain what you are doing and how you're doing it?
Thank you so much. CLIMAFIX, every edition right from the start till now. Hope to keep that going. So I'm Colonel Monish Ahuja. I'm the promoter, chairman, managing director of PRESPL, Punjab Renewable Energy Systems Private Limited. And the name originates from the work that we started in Punjab, but a company always incorporated and headquartered out of Bombay. What we do is use farm agri-residue, and we take farm agri-residue to various forms of energy, and right from working with the farmers in aggregation of farm agri-residue feedstock, to holding that stock in terms of warehousing, to converting it into densified forms of briquettes and pellets, so that now you can transport it from the farm fields or the rural networks to the energy consuming industrialized hubs, and take it to industry where we replace for industry use of fossil fuel in their industrial zones. So these could be industrial boilers based on natural gas, LDO, furnace oil, coal, diesel, etc. And take this farm agri-residue for usage. And in the industrial boilers, we go a step further. where we do the entire operation and maintenance of such industrial boilers, provided we bring the feedstock. So we are not a manpower solution provider, but we are an integrated energy solution provider. And a step further, where we go and invest in these industrial boilers as well, and build, own, operate them for long duration of periods. So we are a fully integrated company from farm agri-residue aggregation to delivering energy to clients. Fit for purpose, wherever a client intends to engage with us, we monetize at that point of time. So if a client wants only biomass from us, we aggregate biomass, as we call it, as loose biomass in shape and form from the fields, and deliver it to a client. And that's where I think the biofuels economy has opened up. We heard Suhas Bakshi, a dear friend, earlier in the day. You can aggregate, you can store, you can supply it and monetize. You can densify it and monetize. You can, on the asset side, build and operate those assets and monetize. The carbon value is the play today, and that carbon value is for one, the thermal value for burn, so the calorific value. The carbon value is also for the molecule of the carbon, and that carbon in terms of a molecule today has the entire biochemistry space. You have the replacement of fossil fuel in terms of crude, in terms of gas, in terms of biochemistry replacing petrochemistry. So it's about a carbon molecule, and it's the same. You have methane, you have ethylene, you have ethanol, and so on and so forth. And you can do the entire platform chemicals from sequestered carbon photosynthesis. And hence, we need not go into the captured carbon in the earth's crust to remove it for our energy purposes. But what the farmer is doing in a short gestation crop, 4 to 6 months, the sequestered carbon can be used for the entire energy value chain rather than allowing the farmer to burn it back into the field. So, bring and develop an ecosystem along with the farmer so that you can use this captured sequestered carbon and bring carbon circularity, bring carbon capture, storage, utilization, bring energy independence, bring the fact that the farmer, as the Honorable Prime Minister keeps saying now, the origination and generator of that energy for us. And I'm consciously using the word energy because electricity is a subset of it. We can do biomass to electricity also. But you have the entire energy paradigm available to do. And that's where, the question which you asked for startups to look at this segment. So Suhas Bakshi and me met 5-6 years back when he was just starting up. And, our conversations even today continue. There are many, many more such startups like Biofuel Circle today in the Indian side, expanding globally. And there is space for hundreds of PRESPLs and biofuels to be in the market because this is a humongous ocean of biomass which is available. And just on the number side, I would differ from what Suhasji put out, a number of 200 million metric tons. What's available as a basket of farm agri-residue in India is 1,500 million metric tons. The usable fraction of that is upwards of 1,000 million metric tons. And, data is something which is questionable in terms of the way numbers come out. But we have challenged various government bodies across, center states, where the data which is put out, the data authenticity or methodology needs kind of revision.
Out of this 1,000 million tons potential, how much are we utilizing today?
Not even a drop in the ocean. So the answer there would be in the range of about 10-15 million metric tons at maximum.
So a huge upward potential is there.
Huge upward potential, and from an industrialization perspective, biofuels, bioenergy is here to stay as the new form. This is the wave of energy replacing, like you said, what happens to the 17 or the 83%. So the electricity market on our energy mix is only 21 to 22% as of today. And what we have achieved in the last 20 years of saying that we are doing 50% of our energy is only 50% of our electricity. The 220 gigawatt is 50% of our electricity segment, and hence, if you look at our energy basket, we have only decarbonized or potentially, in the space of decarbonization there to about 10-11% only. 90% is yet fossil fuel, and that's where biofuels and bioenergy is going to decarbonize.
See, one critical question sometimes people raise about biofuels and even the pellets, etc., is the transportation of it. So when you aggregate, you collect it from the farmers, you bring it to a particular place, you may be processing it, and then it has to be transported to the final user. Do you have a...
What we have achieved in the last 20 years of saying that we are doing 50% of our energy is only 50% of our electricity. The 220 gigawatt is 50% of our electricity segment, and hence, if you look at our energy basket, we have only decarbonized or potentially, in the space of decarbonization there to about 10-11% only. 90% is yet fossil fuel, and that's where biofuels and bioenergy is going to decarbonize.
See, one critical question sometimes people raise about biofuels and even the pellets, etc., is the transportation of it. So when you aggregate, you collect it from the farmers, you bring it to a particular place, you may be processing it, and then it has to be transported to the final user. Do you have a rough number on the relationship between kilowatt hours of energy spent on transporting it in relation to the kilowatt hours of the fuel that you are transporting?
Absolutely, and thanks for that question. There are two elements to look at, and I'll give you some harsh examples to, think about. Anything that you do, and that's where today the greening and the greenwashing differentiation has becoming very, very live. Today, no investor, no financial institution would look at capital allocation unless it is certified green. So the era of greenwashing is kind of over. So if you have to transport, and let's take the first mile transportation of 40-50 kilometers of aggregation of this feedstock, there is an element today that transportation is based on the rural tractor ecosystem of collection, which is still diesel. Thereafter, assuming you're going to densify it with 100% coal-based electricity in your densification plants, you're still using fossil fuel. Thereafter, if you have to transport this densified biomass, let's take what we do is somewhere in the range of about 200 to 300 kilometers, is still diesel-based transportation. And then you are replacing fossil fuel at the use case end. So if you take this entire 300-kilometer journey of using carbon in a not desirable form of diesel or coal, vis-a-vis replacing it with the captured sequestered carbon, and at the final end, one of our clients, L'Oreal, did this study before moving. They did it independently. L'Oreal Paris ordered it out. And the thumb rule replacing natural gas, which is the cleanest of the fossil fuel, was 1 kg of biomass used replaced 1 kg CO2 equivalent on the fossil fuel side. So there, and that's where we learned for the first time. And thereafter, we continue to do this carbon accounting and start working as to how I can replace the tractor with diesel with tractor with compressed biogas, how I can replace the transportation with diesel with transportation with EV. If this transportation with EV can come from a solar charging system, etc. So we actually map out our entire value chain on the carbon matrix. But more importantly, while that is required, and technology tools there are required. So today, what we call as DMRV, digital monitoring, reporting, verification, you need, or an investor needs, sitting in a Europe or a US if they are investing in India, needs clear tracking and traceability of the entire carbon value chain. And that needs to get delivered by companies, which are working in this space. Also, it is a space where startups have come in all over, and they are doing this work. So tech players have started coming in. AI blockchain has come in. We ourselves are incorporating that in our business. But more importantly, on the use case side, we are competitive on the pricing of replacement of fossil fuel. Unless that is the case, the scale that we want to see will not come. So when we replace a diesel, LDO, natural gas, boiler for our industry, but more importantly on the use case side, we are competitive on the pricing of replacement of fossil fuel. Unless that is the case, the scale that we want to see will not come. So when we replace a diesel, LDO, natural gas, boiler for our industry, we have no government subsidy. We have no government support. We have no, exchequer money coming into this business. It's an ecosystem which is running independently on its own. And on the energy use case side, we are cheaper than the fossil fuel energy that they were using. And hence, it started from an ESG mindset, from a, carbon change mindset. But today, the commercial guys of, corporates, they drive it because this form of energy is cheaper. But having said that, the sweet spot where we are is cheaper, but the other forms of biofuel is still more expensive. You have to CBG, ethanol, sustainable aviation fuel, green hydrogen out of biomass, etc., is still more expensive than the conventional energy, and that's where the scale and size will bring it down.
Shrikumar, could you highlight a little bit in your line of business, what are today's challenges and what, more importantly, what are the opportunities?
I think the challenges and the opportunities are two sides of the same coin. For something like this, imagine you're inventing the next frontier of agriculture on the sea. And look at all, and it's the first time that it's being done, and look at all the problems that agriculture today has on land, right? I mean, what are the problems that agriculture today has on land? If you have very large farms and fields, you have issues of nutrition management, you have issues of climate resilience, the heat waves, droughts, you have issues of pests, diseases. And in one form or the other, these occur when you start going on a large scale on the sea. For example, on the sea, when you're starting to grow seaweed farms at highly dense scales, there are nutrient limitations. I mean, there is enough nitrates dissolved in the water, but as you begin to grow them, you're so dependent upon the water flow and the waves that you have very little control about predictability. So there's a lot of opportunity there in how do you create sustainable nutrient management solutions. I mean, one of the most limiting nutrients in anywhere for plants is nitrates and nitrogen. And there is plenty of nitrogen available in the air. Okay? The atmosphere is 70% nitrogen, except you have to discover new frontiers of biology. For example, just like there are nitrogen-fixing bacteria in land, and people are very gung-ho about this for organic farming, that is exactly what you have to do in the sea. There are nitrogen-fixing bacteria associated with seaweed. We just have to figure out how to get them to become a product. 50 to 100 meters under the water, where the sunlight doesn't penetrate anymore, the sea waters are 10 times richer in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Okay? Why is that? Because as long as there is no light, photosynthesis cannot occur. And therefore, all those nutrients have assimilated over millennia. Every time we do agriculture on land, it's a one-way traffic of all the excess nutrients into the sea. Right? All the nitrates, phosphates flow into the sea, and then the sun shines, and only distilled water evaporates out as clouds and rain, leaving everything behind in the sea. So that's one big opportunity. There are things called artificial upwelling systems. It's like dipping a big straw into the sea and sucking out nutrient-rich water. These are technologies that are just waiting to be explored and used. The sea has so much sunlight falling on it. We have electrochemical systems of nitrogen fixation. Now, they don't work on land because one of the things on land is that, oh, how do I, they're first of all very dilute in terms of the, an electrical version of the Haber process for people who understand that. But, on land you need concentrated sources of nitrogen because it's produced in a central location, then you have to lower transport costs and bring in your urea, ammonia, and then you dilute it and put it out in the field. But if you can generate your own ammonia from air and on the sea using electrochemical systems, the seawater will mix it for you. So these are all amazing new things, opportunities that are waiting to be innovated upon. It is truly a next frontier of agriculture. So
What about the warming of the oceans? Is that a challenge?
that is a true challenge. Just like you have warming of, global warming and you have heat waves, on the ocean suddenly you get heat waves. So creating temperature resilient strains, for instance, strains that will tolerate 35 degrees centigrade on the ocean, where normally they would operate at 28 degrees, is all big opportunities in biology waiting to be solved. So I think there's huge amount of innovation opportunity in the ocean farming area. New species of seaweed, our biodiversity has barely been discovered. So I can just go on and on.
Perfect. Narsi, you love surfing, isn't it, on the ocean? Huh?
I lost my way on so many places.
I think you would be a very good surfer, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh? Don't you think so? When you can surf through all these conferences, you can surf on the ocean.
Yeah, I think we should do that. But anyway, now that he has put me in the panel because some guys dropped out, and I am a stopgap, yeah. And by the way, Toine is a stopgap as well. Whenever there isn't anybody, I just say, Toine, why don't you just pitch in? So we are all supposed to be all-rounders. How much of maybe jack of all trades is a better way to describe us. Okay, quickly, but look, I just decided to be here after he told me, why don't you join, because some guys have dropped out. Because there's only one thing I want to tell you in the next 5 minutes or so. You see, a lot of the work we do at EAI, that's the company I run. CLIMAFIX is the event we do. EAI is the company we run. We are a management consulting firm. And we are a boutique management consulting firm. So we are fairly unique. We are boutique, but we serve only the climatic segment. But within that, a large portion of what we do is actually bio. And in fact, I could say with throwing out a bit of modesty, which I didn't have much anyway in many cases, right, that we are probably the only company in the country who is management consulting, boutique, and has a huge bio focus. Now, that's all marketing. I'm a marketing guy, so I have to do a bit of that. But in this context, we have started something called as the BRING. We have a division called BioBiz, under which we have something called as the BRING. And BRING stands for Biomass, Residue, Intelligence, Global. Right? Now, we heard numbers about biomass in India, but it's not just India. All over the world, you are hearing similar stories, be it APAC, be it Europe, be it Asia, and as Shrikumar said, be it under the sea. There is so much of biomass available, residues available. How much of value can we bring from that? Biofuels is an obvious thing, but biofuels, while they are very useful, it is towards the lower rung in terms of the value that you generate. What about biochemicals? What about food? What about a whole lot of other things? I think this domain is largely unexplored. What the world is doing today, because it is the easiest and the world also needs it, is using these residues for fuel, which is what Monish is doing, which is what Suhas is doing. It's a brilliant job, yeah, because the world needs energy, they need low carbon energy. But as we go forward, when I say forward, it's not 2 years, I think this is a much longer time frame. We are talking about maybe 5 to 10 years, we can see some good developments. I see a significant movement upwards in the pyramid, where a lot of these residues could start getting used for making far higher value. I normally tell people and I'm going to close with this. I normally tell people when they talk about Narsi, what are we talking about when you talk about higher value? And I ask them, look, let's look at it. 1 kilogram of biomass, where we are just burning it raw, he probably gets 2.5 rupees today. If you make it into a briquette, you probably can make about 5 rupees per kilogram. If you are extracting ethanol from it, if you leave out the non-ethanol portion of it, or if you valorize it, you can make 20, 25 rupees. So from 2 rupees, I have already gone to 25 rupees, right? From pure burning to a biofuel. But if you take it to biochemical, it could be 100 rupees. Now, if you go to the very extreme, there are algae, microalgae, since he talks about seaweed, he must be knowing, which can be made into what is called as an astaxanthin, which is an antioxidant. And the algae, the price of astaxanthin, 1 kilogram, you will be surprised, it's $7,000. That is 5 times the price of silver, 20% the price of, or no, 10, 15% the price of gold. Just 1 kilogram of a biomass is actually $7,000. Of course, the world doesn't make millions of tons. The world probably makes 100 tons, 200 tons. I'm just giving you a spectrum. From 2 rupees per kilogram all the way to $7,000 per kilogram is the spectrum. I know Monish or Shrikumar will smile inwardly and say, this is all nice talk. Doing it is a very difficult thing. Completely agree, and which is why I feel a platform like Bring, which brings together, to use upon, a lot of scientists and today's AI, which could be very required to go to the fundamentals of each of these biomass. Because we are talking about tens of thousands of residues all over the world. I have a feeling that in the next 5 to 10 years, if people like Monish and Suhas and Sri start focusing also on how do we bring, because these are senior guys, they have access to government all the way up to the Prime Minister's office. If they can start focusing on how can I make this Bring, or whatever you want to call it, into a platform, at least for India. We get all the scientists together, we get the startups together, we get, of course, the investors and funding together. And in the next 10 years, we are going to say from an average of 3 or 4 rupees per kilogram, there is residues is going to generate 200 rupees per kilogram. I think that's possible. That is what we are doing at Bring. It's very initial stages. There is a poster we have put out for Bring outside. Please write to us. I'll start helping you guys out. The one thing I can say is I have connections with people like this. And I think any of you guys in the audience, since you spoke about startups, you guys are excited about working on biomass residues, valorizing them, meaning deriving value out of them. Please talk to us. Bring will certainly bring you good cheers.
Thank you, Narsi, for these concluding words. I think this is then the conclusion of our session. Thank you very much. And of course, both of the participants are also available during the lunch break and in the outside sessions. So please approach them for any further questions. I think both of them have a huge knowledge in this field. I found this session alone already very educative. Thank you very much.
Just a point of what Narsi said. We have launched a company only 2 months back called as Biochar India Private Limited. So take that biomass from the farm fields, convert it using technology to high-speed, fast conversion biochar, and bring it back to the farm fields for carbon sequester. We're not selling anything to anybody except for carbon to the global markets. So it's a carbon credit narrative with the farmers at the first end and the farmers at the tail end. And today government has the soil health card, so they have the soil carbon data available. All you need to do is continue working in this value stream, and 5 years down, the testing being done by government every 6 months, you will have the soil health improvement data of carbon available. And that at some point of time should get monetized, besides the carbon value.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our speakers for this insightful session. I would like to request Ms. Shweta Dalmia from Bharat Climate Startups to present the mementos to our speakers.